Hello. Welcome back, everybody. We are doing something new with Animorphs, the old book series. We'll be reading Book 1, Chapter 1. My name is Jake. That's my first name, obviously. I can't tell you my last name. It would be too dangerous. The controllers are everywhere. Everywhere. And if they knew my full name, they would find me and my friends. And then, let's just say I don't want them to find me. What they do to people who resist them is too horrible to think about. I won't even tell you where I live. You'll just have to trust me that it is a real place, a real town. It may even be your town. I'm writing this all down so that more people will learn the truth. Maybe then, somehow, the human race can survive. At least until the Andalites return and rescue us, as they promised they would. Maybe. My life used to be pretty normal. Normal, that is, until one Friday night at the mall. I was there with Marco, my best friend. We were playing video games and hanging out at this cool store that sells comic books and stuff. The usual. Marco and I had run out of quarters for the games, right when he was ahead by a lot of points. Mostly we're equal good at games. I have Sega at home, so I get lots of practice time in. But Marco has this amazing ability to analyze games and figure all the little tricks. So sometimes he beats me. Or maybe I just wasn't concentrating very well. I kind of had a bad day at school. I tried out for the basketball team, and I didn't make the cut. It was like no big deal, really. Except that Tom, he's my big brother. And he was this total legend on the junior high basketball team. Now he's the main scorer for the high school team. So everyone expected me to make the team easy, only I didn't. Like I said, no big thing. But it was on my mind, just the same. Lately, Tom and I hadn't been hanging out as much. Not like we used to. So I figured, if I got his old position on the team... Anyway. We were out of money getting ready to head home when we ran into Tobias. Tobias was, I guess he still is kind of a strange guy. He was new at school, and he wasn't the toughest kid around. So he get picked on a lot. I actually met Tobias when he had his head in a toilet. There was these two big guys holding him down and laughing while they flushed, sending Tobias' straggly blonde hair swirling around the bowl. I told the two creeps to step off, and ever since then, Tobias figured I was his friend. "What's up?" Tobias asked. I shrugged. "Not much, we're heading home." "Out of quarters," Marco commented. "Certain people keep forgetting the sleaze troll shows up right after you cross the Netherford. So certain people keep losing the game and losing our quarter." Marco kept jerking his thumb at me, just in case Tobias couldn't figure out who he meant by certain people. "So, maybe I'll walk home with you guys," Tobias said. I said, "Sure, why not?" We were heading for the exit when I spotted Rachel and Cassie. Rachel's kind of pretty, I guess. Okay, she's very pretty. Although, since she is my cousin, I don't really think about her that way. She has blonde hair and blue eyes and that kind of very clean, very wholesome look. She's one of those people who always knows the right clothes to wear and how to look like they just walked out of one of those fashion magazine girls like. She's also very graceful because she takes gymnastics, even though she's totally too tall for it. Even though she's too tall to have a Cassie is sort of the opposite. For one thing, she's usually wearing jeans and a plaid shirt, or something else real casual. She's black and wears her hair She wears her hair very short most of the time. She had it longer for a while, but then she went back to short, which I like. Cassie is quieter than Rachel, more peaceful. Like she always understands something, everything on some different, more mystical level. I guess you could say I kind of like Cassie. Sometimes we sit together on the bus, even though I never know what to say to her. You guys going home? I asked Rachel. You shouldn't go through the construction site by yourselves. I mean, being girls and all. That was a mistake. I should never have suggested to Rachel that she's weak or helpless. Rachel may look like Little Miss Teen Model or whatever, but she thinks she's Storm from the X-Men. Are you going to come and protect us, you big, strong man? She said. You think we're helpless just because? I'd appreciate if they did walk with us, Cassie interrupted. I know you're not afraid of anything, Rachel, but I guess I am. Rachel couldn't say much about that. That's why Cassie is. She always has. That's why the way Cassie is. That's the way Cassie is. Sorry, chat. She always has the right words to stop any arguments without making anyone feel bad. So there we were, the five of us. Marco, Tobias, Rachel, Cassie, and me. 5 normal mall rats heading home. Sometimes I think about that one last moment when we were still just normal kids. It's like it was a million years ago. Like it was some totally different group of kids. You know what I was afraid of right then? I was afraid of admitting to Tom that I hadn't made the team. That was as scary as life got back then. 5 minutes later, life got a lot scarier. To get home from the mall, we could either go a long way around, which is the safe way, or we could cut through this abandoned construction site and hope there weren't any max murderers hanging around there. My mom and dad have sworn to ground me until I'm 20 if they ever find I've cut through that construction site. So anyways, we crossed the road and headed into the abandoned construction site. It was a big area, surrounded on 2 sides by trees, with the highway separating it from the mall area. There was a broad, open field between the construction site and the nearest houses. It's a very isolated place. Originally, it was supposed to be this new shopping center. Now, it was just all these half-finished buildings, looking like a ghost town. There were huge piles of rusted steel beams, pyramids of giant concrete pipes, little mountains of dirt, deep pits that had to be filled up with black, muddy water, and a creaking, rusted construction crane that I climbed once while Marcus stayed below and told me I was being an idiot. It was a totally deserted place, full of shadows and sounds that made the hair on the back of your neck stand up. When Marco and I were there during the day, we always found all these beer cans and liquor bottles. Sometimes we found the ashes of little campfires back in the hidden nooks and crannies of the buildings, so we knew that people came there at night. All that was on my mind as we crept to the site. It was Tobias who saw it first. He had been walking along, gazing up at the sky. I guess he's looking at the stars or something. That's the way Tobias is sometimes, off in his own world. Suddenly, Tobias stopped. He was pointing him straight up. Look, he said. What? I didn't want to be distracted, because I was pretty sure I'd heard the sound of Chainsaw Killer creeping up behind us. Just look, Tobias said. His voice was strange, amazed sounding, but serious at the same time. So I looked up. and there was a brilliant blue-white light that scooted across the sky, going fast at first, too fast for it to be an airplane, then slower and slower. What is it? Tobias shook his head. I don't know. I looked at Tobias and he looked back at me. We both knew what we thought it was, but we didn't want to say it. Mark and Rachel would have laughed, we figured. But Cassie just blurted it right out. It's a flying saucer. Chapter 2. A flying saucer? Marco said. He did laugh, that is, until he looked up. I could feel my own heart pounding in my chest. I felt weird and excited and afraid all at once. It's coming this way, Rachel said. It's hard to be sure. I could barely whisper. My mouth was so dry. No, it's coming this way, Rachel said. She had a very definite way of talking. Like she's totally sure of everything she says. Rachel was right. Whatever it was coming closer, and it was slowing down. Now I could see pretty clearly what it looked like. It's not exactly a flying saucer, I said. First of all, it wasn't all that big. It was about as long as a school bus. The front end was a pod, shaped almost like an egg. Extending from the back of the pod was a long, narrow shaft. There were two crooked, stubby wing-like things, and on the end of each wing was a long tube that glowed bright blue on the back end. The little spaceship almost looked cute, kind of harmless. Except it had a sort of a tail. A mean-looking tail that curved up and forward, cornering to a point that looked sharp as a needle. That tail thing, I said, looks like a weapon. Definitely, Marco agreed. The little ship kept coming nearer, going slower all the time. It's stopping, Rachel said. She had the same strange, not quite real tone in her voice I had. Like we couldn't believe what we were seeing. Like maybe we didn't want to believe. I think it sees us, Margot said. Should we run? Maybe we should run home and get a camera. Do you know how much money we could get for a video of a real UFO? If we run, they might, I don't know, zap us with lasers on full power, I said. I meant that as a joke, kind of. Lasers are only on Star Trek, Marco said, rolling his eyes with the way he does when he thinks I'm being a dweeb. Like he was some kind of expert on alien spaceships. Right. The ship stopped and hovered almost directly over our heads. Maybe 100 feet in the air. I could feel the hair on my head standing on end. When I glanced at Rachel, it was almost funny. She has this long blonde hair and it was sticking out straight out in every direction. Only Cassie looked normal. What do you think it is? Marco asked. He sounded a little shakier. Not as laid back now the thing was so close. To be honest, I was a little scared too. A little scared. As in, so terrified I couldn't move. But at that same time, it was all cool beyond any coolness ever. I mean, it was a spaceship. Right there over my head. Tobias was actually grinning. But that's Tobias for you. He's never scared of weird stuff. This is normal stuff he can't stand. I think it's going to land, he said. This huge smile on his face. His eyes were bright and excited, and his blonde hair was standing up in clumps. The ship began to descend. "It's coming right at us!" I cried. I had to fight an urge to run yammering across the field all the way home, where I could crawl underneath into my bed and pull the covers over my head. But I knew this was important, an important, amazing thing. I knew I had to stay and see it all. I guess the others felt the same way, because we all just stood there, as the ship hummed and glowed and slowly settled down in an open space between piles of junk and tumbled walls. I noticed there were black burn marks along the top of the pod section. Some of the skin of the pod had been melted. It touched the ground and instantly the blue lights went off. Rachel's hair fell back onto her neck. "It isn't very big, is it?" Rachel whispered. "It's about," I tried to think, "well, 3 or 4 times as big as our minivan." "We should tell someone," Marco said. "I mean, this is kind of major, you know? Spaceships don't just land in the construction site every day. We should call the cops or the army or the president or something. We'd be totally famous. We'd be on Letterman for sure." "Yeah, you're right," I agreed. "We should call someone." But none of us moved. None of us. We're going to walk away from the spaceship. I wonder if we should try to talk to it," Rachel suggested. She was standing there with her hands on her hips, looking at the spaceship like it was a puzzle she had to figure out. "I mean, we should communicate, if that's even possible." Tobias nodded. He stepped forward and held out his hands. I guess he was showing whoever was in the ship that he wasn't carrying any kind of weapon or anything. "It's safe," he said in a loud, clear voice. "We won't hurt you." "Do you think they speak English?" I wondered. "Well, everyone speaks English on Star Trek," Cassie said with a nervous laugh. Tobias tried again. "Please, come out. We won't hurt you." "I know." I froze. Okay, I had definitely heard someone say "I know," only there hadn't been any sound. I mean, I heard it, but I didn't really hear it. Maybe this was all a dream. I looked kind of sideways at Cassie. She looked back at me. Our eyes met. She had heard it too. I looked at Rachel. She was turning her head back and forth, like she was looking for where that sound, well, it wasn't a sound, could have come from. I started to get a sick, twisty feeling in my stomach. "Did everyone hear that?" Tobias whispered. We all nodded at once, very slowly. "Can you come out?" Tobias asked in his loud, talking to Aaron's voice. "Yes. Do not be frightened." "We won't be frightened," Tobias said. "Speak for yourself," I muttered. The others giggled nervously. A thin arc of light appeared, a doorway, opening slowly in the opening in the smooth side of the pod part of the ship. I stood there, totally hypnotized. I just stared, waiting. The opening grew, like a crescent moon at first, then a full, bright circle. And then he appeared. My first reaction was that someone had cloned a person and a deer together. The creature had a head and shoulders and arms that were more or less where they should have been, though the skin was a pale shade of blue. But below that, he had fur, a mix of blue and tan, covering a 4-legged body that really did look like it belonged to a deer, or maybe a small horse. He ducked his head out the doorway, and I could see that even the fairly normal-looking parts of him weren't all that normal. He had no mouth, just 3 vertical slits. And then there were his eyes. 2 of them where they should have been, although they were a glittery green color that was kind of shocking. But the real shock was the other eyes. He had what seemed like horns, only on top of each horn was an eye. The horns could move, twisting to point the eyes front and back or up and down. I thought the eyes were bad until I saw the tail. It was like a scorpion's tail, thick and powerful looking. On the end was a wickedly curved, very sharp-looking horn or stinger. It reminded me of the alien spaceship. It had seemed kind of cute and harmless until you noticed the tail. The alien seemed kind of harmless at first glance too. Then he saw that tail of his and he thought, whoa, this guy could do some damage if he wanted. Hello, Tobias said. His voice was gentle, like he was talking to a baby. He was grinning. I realized I was smiling too, and at that moment, I realized that there were tears in my eyes. I couldn't really describe how it felt, except that it seemed like the alien was someone I'd known forever. Like an old friend I hadn't seen in a long, long time. Hello, the alien said, in that silent way that you only heard inside your head. Hi, we all said back. To my surprise, the alien staggered. He fell out of the ship to the ground. Tobias tried to grab him and hold him up, but the alien slipped from his grasp and fell back to the dirt. Look, Cassie said. She pointed at a burn that covered half the alien's right side. He's hurt. Yes, I am dying, he said. Can we help you? Can we help you? We can call an ambulance or something, Margo said. We can bandage that wound, Cassie said. Jake, give me your shirt. We can tear it up and make bandages. Cassie's parents are both veterinarians, and she's totally into animals. Not that this wasn't an animal. Not exactly, anyways. No, I will die. The wound is fatal. No, I cried. You can't die. You're the first alien to ever come to Earth. You can't die. I don't know why I was so upset. I just knew that way deep down, it hurt me to think of him dying. I am not the first. There are many, many others. Other aliens? Like you? Tobias demanded. The alien shook his big head slowly, side to side. Not like me. Then he cried out in pain. A silent sound that echoed horribly inside my mind. For a moment, I actually felt him dying. Not like me, he repeated. They are different. Different? How? I said. I will remember his answer forever. He said, They have come to destroy you. Chapter 3. They have come to destroy you. It was strange. The way we all just knew he was telling the truth. No one said, no way, or you're making it up. We all just knew. He was dying, and he was trying to warn us of something terrible. They are called Yerks. They are different from us, different from you as well. Are you telling us they're already here on Earth? Rachel demanded. Many are here. Hundreds. Maybe more. What? Well, why hasn't anybody noticed something? Margo said reasonably. I think someone would have mentioned it at school. You do not understand. Yerks are different.
They have no body like yours or mine. They live in the bodies of other species. They are.
I guess he couldn't think of a word to explain Yerks, so he closed his eyes and seemed to concentrate. Suddenly, a bright picture popped into my head. I saw a gray-green, slimy thing, like a snail without its shell, only bigger, the size of a rat, maybe. It wasn't a pretty picture. I'm guessing that was a Yerk, Marco said. Either that or a very big wad of slimy chewing gum.
They are almost powerless without hosts.
Suddenly we felt that blast of pain, straight from the alien. I could feel sadness. He knew his time was almost up.
The Yerks are parasites. They must have a host to live in. In this form, they are known as controllers. They enter the brain and are absorbed into it, taking over the host's thoughts and feelings. They'll try to get the host to accept them voluntarily. It is easier that way. Otherwise, the host may be able to resist, at least a little.
Are you saying they take over human beings? Rachel asked. People? These things take over their bodies? Like, this is serious stuff, I said. You shouldn't be telling us. We're just kids, you know? This is like something the government should know about.
We had hoped to stop them, the alien continued. Swarms of their bug fighters were waiting when our dome ship came out of Z space. We knew of their mothership and were ready for the big bug fighters, but the Yerks surprised us. They had hidden a powerful blade ship in the crater of your moon. We fought, but we lost. They have trucked me here. They will be here soon to eliminate all traces of me and my ship.
How can they do that? Cassie wondered. The alien seemed to smile with his eyes.
Their Dracon beams will leave nothing behind but a few molecules of the ship and this body, he said. I sent a message to my homeworld. We Andalites fight the Yerks wherever they go throughout the universe. My people will send help, but it may take a year, even more. It may take a year, even more. And then by then, the Yerks will have control of this planet. After that, there is no hope. You must tell people. You must warn your people.
Another spasm of pain ripped through him. We all knew he was nearly gone. No one is ever going to believe us, Margot said hopelessly. He looked at me and shook his head. No way. He was right. If these Yerks were to wipe out the Andalite ship, how on earth would we to convince people? They would think we're either nuts or on drugs. I don't care if he thinks he is going to die. We have to try and help him, Rachel said. We can get him to a hospital or maybe Cassie's parents.
There is no time. No time,
the Andalite said. Then his eyes brightened.
Perhaps.
What? What?
Go into my ship. You will see a small blue box, very plain. Bring it to me, quickly. I have very little time, and the Yerks will find me soon.
We all looked at each other. Who was going to be the one to go inside the ship? Somehow we all seemed to agree it would be me. Actually, I didn't agree, but everyone else did.
Go ahead, Tobias said. I want to stay with him. He knelt beside the Andalite and placed a comforting hand on the alien's narrow shoulder. I looked at the doorway into the spacecraft. I glanced at Cassie. Go ahead, she said, sending me a smile. You're not scared. She was wrong. I was plenty scared. But the way she smiled at me, I wasn't about to weasel out. I walked over to the door of the ship and looked inside. It was surprisingly simple. It looked cozy almost. Everything was a creamy color with rounded edges and shapes that tended to be oval. That was one of the things that helped me to spot the box so easily. It was sky blue and square, maybe 4 inches on each side. It seemed kind of heavy for being so small. I stepped up into the ship. There was no chair, just a sort of open space where I guess the Andalite stood on his 4 hooves while he worked with a few controls. There weren't a lot of buttons or anything. I wondered if the Andalite controlled the ship with his thoughts. I quickly reached for the box and started to head back outside. But then something caught my eye. It was small, 3-dimensional picture. It was a small 3-dimensional picture. 4 Andalites standing together. Whoa, 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 whoa. There we go. Looking like a strange gathering of deers with solemn faces. 2 of them looked like very small kids. I realized that this was a picture of the Andalite's family. Filled me sadness to think that here he was, dying 1,000,000 miles away from his family. Dying because he tried to protect the people of Earth. I felt a small flame of anger against the Yerks, or controllers, or whatever they were, for causing this. I went back to the circle, my friends. Here's the box, I told Dandelight. Thank you. Was that your family, that picture? Yes. I'm really sorry. What else could I say? There is something I may be able to do to help you fight the Yerks. What? Rachel demanded. I know that you are young. I know that you have no power with which to resist the controllers. But I may be able to give you some small powers that may help. We all looked at each other, all except Tobias, who never took his gaze off the alien. If you wish, I can give you powers that no other human being has ever had. Powers? Yeah. What is that supposed to mean? It is a piece of Andalite technology that the Yerks do not have, Daniel explained. A technology that enables us to pass unnoticed in many parts of the universe. The power to morph. We have never shared this power, but your need is great. Morph? Morph how? Rachel asked, her eyes narrowed. To change your bodies, Android said. To become any other species, any animal. Marco laughed riotously. Become animals. Marco isn't the most accepting person in the world. You will only need to touch a creature to acquire its DNA pattern, and you will be able to become that creature. It requires concentration and determination, but if you are strong, you can do it. There are limitations, dangers even, but there is no time to explain it all. No time. You will have to learn it for yourselves. But first, do you wish to receive this power?
He's kidding, right? Marco asked me.
No, Tobias said softly.
He's not kidding. This is nuts, Marco said. This whole thing is nuts. Yeerks and spaceships and slugs taking over people's brains, and andalates and the power to change into animals? Give me a break. Yeah, it is beyond weird, I agreed. We're off the map of weirdness by this point, Rachel said. But unless we're all just dreaming, I think we'd better deal with this. He's dying, Tobias reminded us. I'll do it, Cassie said. That surprised me. Cassie isn't so quick to decide. But I guess like Tobias, she felt the truth of what the andalite was saying. I think we should all decide together, I suggested. One way, or the other. What's that? Rachel asked. She was looking up towards the stars. Far, far overhead, 2 pinpoints of bright red light were shooting across the sky. Yucks! The andalite said the word in our minds, and we could feel his hatred. Chapter 4. Yucks! The twin red lights slid. They turned in a circle and came back towards us.
There is no more time. You must decide.
We have to do this, Tobias said. How else can we fight these controllers? This is insane, Margaret said. Insane. I'd like more time, but we don't have that choice, Rachel said. I'm for it. What do you say, Jake? Cassie asked me. It was odd. Like suddenly I was the one who had to decide for everyone. And looked up at the Geerk ship. What had the andalite called them? Bug fighters? They were circling closer, like dogs sniffing for scent. I looked down at the andalite and remembered the picture of his family. Would they even know what had happened to him? I looked at each of the people around me. My usually funny, occasionally annoying best friend, Marco, Rachel, my smart, pretty, confident cousin, and Cassie, who everyone knew liked animals more than she liked people. Finally, I looked at Tobias. It was weird. The feeling I had at that moment, staring at him. A chill or something. We have to, Tobias said to me. Slowly, I nodded. Yes, we have no choice.
Then each of you, press your hand against one of the sides of the square.
We did. 5 hands, each pressed against one side. Then a 6th hand, different from ours, with too many fingers.
Do not be afraid,
the andalite said. Something like a shock, only pleasurable, seemed to run through me. A tingle that almost made me laugh.
Go now, the andalite said. Only remember this.
Never remain in an animal form
for more than 2 of your Earth hours. Never. That is the greatest danger of the morphing. If you stay longer than 2 hours, you will be trapped, unable to return to human form.
2 hours, I repeated. Suddenly, some new fear washed through the andalite's mind. Linked as I was to him, I could feel it as a dread that crawled up to my spine. He was staring up at the sky with his main eyes. Something else was up with the bug fighters.
Vista 3, he comes.
What? I was shaking with this new terror. What's a Visser? Who is a Visser?
Go now. Run. Vista 3 is here. He is the most deadly of your enemies. Of all Yeerks, he alone has the power to morph. The same power you now have. Run! No, we'll stay with you, Rachel said firmly. Maybe we can help. Again, it was as if the alien was smiling at us with his eyes. No, you must save yourselves. Save yourselves and save your planet. The Yeerks are here. We all looked up, craning our necks. Sure enough, the two red lights were sinking towards us, and they had been joined by a third ship, far larger, black as a shadow within a shadow. But how are we supposed to fight these controllers? Rachel demanded. You must find a way. Now run! I jerked from the force of his command. He's right! Run! I yelled. We ran. All but for Tobias, who knelt beside the Andalite and took his hand. The Andalite pressed his other hand against Tobias's head. Tobias rocked back, like he'd been shocked. And then he, too, was up and running, stumbling over the loose junk and potholes of the construction site. A beam of red light snapped on. It was a spotlight from one of the bug fighters. The beam lit up the fallen Andalite in the ship. A spotlight from the second bug fighter joined the first, and the Andalite shone more brilliant as a star. I hit the dirt hard. I saw my leg lit up within the circle of the spotlight. I yanked it to me and crawled fast, scraping my elbows and knees over the sharp stones. The five of us crouched below, behind a low, crumbled wall, afraid to move, afraid to look, but just as afraid to look away. Slowly, the bug fighters descended. It was easy to see where they had gotten their nickname. They were slightly larger than the Andalite fighter, and had shaped like legless cockroaches. They were small window-like eyes on the forward thrust head of the bug, and on the other side of the head were two very long, very sharp, serrated spears. The Yeerk bug fighters touched down, one on either side of the Andalite ship. Okay, you can wake me up now, Marcus said in a rattled whisper. I've had enough of this dream. The larger ship began to descend. I don't know what it was about that ship, but as it got closer, I started to feel like I couldn't breathe. I tried to suck in a deep lungful of air, and I couldn't. I tried to swallow, and I couldn't. I wanted to run, but my legs were jelly. I was shaking from a fear so deep. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. It was the same fear that Andalite had shown when he'd realized Visser 3 was coming. The ship settled towards the ground. It looked like it was going to land directly on a big, rusted earth mover parked there. But as the Visser's ship descended, the earth mover just sizzled and disappeared. Okay then. Visser 3's ship was built like some ancient weapon. It reminded me of one of those battle axes the old-time knights used to. It reminded me of one of those battle axes the old-time knights used when they were hacking off the heads of their foes. There was a main part that handled the axe with a big triangular point on the front. That part had to be the bridge. At the rear of the two huge scimitar wings. It was 8 or 10 times the size of the bug fighters. The blade ship landed. A door opened. Cassie started to scream. I clamped my hand over her mouth. They leaped from the ship, whirling and thrusting and slicing in the air. Creatures that looked like walking weapons. They stood on two bent back legs and had two very long arms. On each arm, There were curved horn blades growing out of the wrist and elbow. There were other blades at the back knees, and the two more blades at the end of their tails. They had feet like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Hang on, let me reread that. I'm sorry. They leaped from the ship, whirling and thrusting and slicing in the air. Creatures that looked like walking weapons. They stood on two bent back legs and had two very long arms. Bent back legs, okay. On each arm there were curved horn blades growing out of the wrist and elbow. There were other blades at their bent back knees and two more blades at the end of their tails. They had feet like a T-Rex, Tyrannosaurus Rex. But it was a head that got your attention. A neck like a snake. A mouth that almost a falcon's beak. And from the forehead, three dagger-like horns raked forward. Hork Bajor controllers. I jumped, hearing the Andalite's words in my mind again. They were fainter than before, strained, like someone yelling from far away. Did you guys? Rachel nodded. Yeah. The Hork Bajor are good people, despite the fearsome look, the Andalite said. But they have been enslaved by the Yerks. Each of them now carries a Yerk in his head. They are to be pitied. Pity, right, Rachel said grimly. They're walking killing machines. Look at them. But our attention was drawn away by a new form that crept and slithered and shimmied out of the blade ship. Taxon controllers, the Andalite said. I knew he was trying to tell us all he could, even to the end. Trying to prepare us for what we were up against. The Taxons are evil. Yeah, Marco muttered. I think I would have guessed that. They were like massive centipedes, twice as long as grown men. So big around that if you wanted to try to hug one, your arms wouldn't make it even halfway. Not that anyone would ever want to. They had dozens of legs that supported the lower 2/3 of their bodies. The top third was held upright, and there the rows of legs became smaller, with little lobster claw hands. Around the top of their disgusting, tubular bodies were 4 eyes, each like a wiggling globule of red jello. And at the very end, pointing straight up in the air, was a round mouth ringed by hundreds of tiny teeth. Hork-Bajor and Taxons poured from the blade ship, spreading out around the area like well-trained Marines. They were holding small, pistol-sized things that were definitely weapons. They formed a ring around the Andalite ship and the ship. Suddenly, one of the Hork-Bajir came straight towards us. He took one big, bounding step, and he was practically on top of us. I hugged the dirt like it was my last hope. I wish I could dig a hole. I saw a flash of Marco's face. His eyes were huge. His lips were drawn back in what could have been a grin, except I knew it was an expression of pure terror. Alright, I'll read chapter 5 and then we'll leave it off here. I'll do this one. The Hork-Bajir pointed his gun, or whatever it was, around at the darkness. His snake head swerved left and right, trying to penetrate the gloom. Silence, the Andalite warned us. Hork-Bajir do not see well in darkness, but their hearing is very good. The Hork-Bajir moved closer still. He was 6 feet away now, with just a low wall between us. He had to have heard my heart pounding. Maybe he didn't know what the sound was. Maybe he didn't recognize the sound of 5 terrified children. Terrified kids, whose knees were quivering and teeth were chattering. kids who were breathing in short, sudden gasps. I was sure I was going to die right then. I could see in my mind the way those vicious wrists and elbow blades were going to slice my head from the body. If you've never been really afraid, let me tell you, it does things to you. It takes over your mind and your body. You want to scream. You want to run. You want to wet your pants. You want to throw yourself down on the ground and cry and beg, please, 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 please don't kill me. And if you're brave, well, wait till you're cowering a few feet away from a monster who can turn into coleslaw in about 3 seconds flat. But then, the android's voice was in my head again. Courage, my friends. And this warmth, I didn't have any words to explain it. It was just this warmth that spread all through me. It was like when you're a little kid and you've had a terrible nightmare and you've woken up screaming. You know how you used to feel better when your mom or dad would turn on the light and come in and sit beside you in the bed? That's what this was like. That's what it was like. I mean, I was still terrified. The Hork-Bajir was still there. So real, so deadly. I could hear him breathing. I could smell him. But at the same time, I could feel the panic coming under control. I could feel the strength flowing from the doomed Andalite. He was letting us borrow some of his courage, even though he must have been afraid himself. The Hork-Bajir moved away. Something new was coming from the blade ship. Shaking and chattering, I rose high enough to look over the wall. Every Hork-Bajir and every taxon was turned toward the ship now. They're all standing at attention, I whispered. How can you tell? Margaret whispered. Who knows what a Gilead centipede or a walking solid shooter from hell is standing at attention? Then he appeared. Visser 3, the Andalite said. Visser 3 was an Andalite. Or when he was an Andalite controller. What the? Isn't that an Andalite? Only once has a Yeerk been able to take an Andalite body, the Andalite said. There is only one Andalite controller. That one is Visser 3. Visser 3 walked confidently toward the wounded Andalite. The Visser seemed so much like the Andalite, it was hard to tell him apart at first. He had the same mouthless face, the same extra stalk eyes that turned around here and there, checking out everything in all directions, the same powerful yet sleek, four-legged body, and the same wicked tail. But if the Visser looked like any normal Andalite, he felt different. It was like he was wearing a mask. Only you just knew that under the fake sweetness of the mask, there was something twisted and foul. Well, Visser 3 said. I almost had a heart attack when I realized I was hearing the Visser's thoughts. Can he hear our thoughts? Cassie whispered. If he can. We're so dead I don't think we want to think about it, Rachel told her. He cannot hear your thoughts, the Andalite said. As long as you don't direct them to him, you will hear his thoughts, because he is broadcasting them for all to hear. This is a great victory for him, so he wants all to hear. What have we here? A meddling Andalite. Visser 3 looked more closely at the Andalite ship. Ah, but no ordinary Andalite warrior. Prince Elfangor Cyrano Shamatul, if I am not mistaken. An honor to meet you. You are a legend. How many of our fighters have you shredded? 7? Or was it 8 by the time of the last battle ended? The Andalite didn't answer, but I had a feeling it had been more than 8. The very last Andalite in this spectral space. Yes, I'm afraid your dome ship has been completely destroyed. Completely. I watched it burn as if fell into the atmosphere of this little world. There will be others, the Andalite Prince said. The Visser took a step closer to the Andalite. Yes. And when they come, it will be too late. This world will be mine. My own contribution to the Yuk Empire, our greatest conquest. And then I'll be Visser 1. What do you want with these humans? The Andalite asked. You have your Taxon allies. You have your Hork-Bajor slaves, and other slaves from other worlds. Why these people? Because they are so many, and they are so weak, Visser 3 sneered. Billions of bodies, and they have no idea what's happening. With this many hosts, we can spread throughout the universe. Unstoppable. Billions of us. We'll have to build 1,000 new Yerk bulls just to raise Yerks for half this number of bodies. Face it, Andalite. You have fought well and bravely, but you have lost. Visser 3 stepped right up to the Andalite. I could feel the Andalite's fear, but rather than cower, he fought the pain of his wound and climbed to his feet. He knew he was going to die. He wanted to die on his feet, looking his enemy in the face. But Visser 3 was not done taunting his foe. I promise you one thing, Prince Elfangor. When we have this planet, with this rich harvest of bodies, we will move against the Andalite homeworld. I will personally hunt down your family, and I will personally oversee the placement of my most faithful lieutenants and their leaders and their heads. I hope that they will resist, so I can hear their minds scream. The Andalite struck. His tail whipped up and over so fast you couldn't really see it. The Visser twisted his head aside. The Andalite's tail blade missed the Visser's head by a bare half-inch. But it sliced into his shoulder. Blood, or something like blood, sprayed from the wound. Yes! Arrgh! I could hear the Viscer's howl of pain in my head. At the same time, a blinding beam of blue light shot from the tail of the Andalite ship. It sliced into the nearest bug fighter. Hork-Bajir and Taxon scattered. Even crouching behind the wall, I could feel a wave of blistering heat. The bug fighter sizzled and disappeared. Fire! Visser 3 yelled. Burn his ship! The night exploded in blinding light. Red beams lanced from the blade ship and the remaining bug fighter. The Andalite ship glowed, and, with a strange slowness, disintegrated. Then, in the flash and glow of Dracon beams, I saw, or thought I saw, humans. A small group of them? Maybe 3 or 4, back in the shadows behind the Visser. There are people over there, I told him. There are people over there, I told Marco. What? Are they prisoners? Take the Andalite, Visser 3 ordered his soldiers. Hold him for me. 3 Hork-Bajir Three big Hork-Bajir grabbed the Andalite and held him down. Their wrist blades were at his throat, but they knew better than to kill him. That was to be Visser 3's personal privilege. Then we saw why Yerk, as powerful as Visser 3, would inhabit the only captured Andalite body. As we watched, Visser 3 began to morph. His Andalite head grew larger, much larger. The 4 horse-like legs merged into 2, and then expanded, each leg becoming as big as a redwood tree. The delicate Andalite arms sprouted and became tentacles. Not testicles, tentacles. "This isn't real," Cassie whispered. "This isn't real." In the hideously bloated head, a mouth appeared. It was filled with teeth as long as your arm. The mouth grew wider and wider, becoming a monstrous, terrifying grin. There was nothing left of the Andalite body. A monster had taken in its place. The roar of the beast of Visser 3 had become the ground shake. I covered my ears with my hands. My teeth rattled from the sound. I heard someone whimpering. It was me. Visser 3 had become a monster that had made the Hork-Bajir and the Taxons look so harmless, look like harmless toys. He reached out with one thick tentacle and grabbed the Andalite by the neck. "No, no, no," I heard Cassie whispering over and over again. "No, no, no, no." "Don't look," Rachel said to her. She put her arm around Cassie's shoulder and held her close. Then she reached for Tobias and held his hand. I guess you never really know someone until you see them scared. And even scared to death, with tears running down her face, Rachel had the strength to spare. Visser 3 lifted the Andalite straight up into the air, tearing him from the grasp of the Hork-Bajir. The Andalite prince struck again and again with his tail, but each strike was like a pinprick against such a creature. Visser 3 held the Andalite high in the air, and then the Visser 3 opened his mouth wide. And that is where we will leave this episode off, chat. This was episode 1. We have gone through chapter